This is Dark Illumination Report, Episode 14. The views expressed on this podcast are the views of the podcast host only. The host neither represents or endorses any specific satanic organization or tradition. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes, and please tell a friend. I'd really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at RJWO15. If you have questions or comments, you can leave us a message at speakpipe.com/DIR podcast. That's speakpipe.com/DIR podcast.
This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast with RJ Womack.
A friend of mine was pointing out the other day that they get this question a lot. They're often asked whether once somebody has become a Christian, can they renounce it and become a Satanist? And the answer is obviously yes. You can renounce Christianity and become a Satanist only on one condition. That is, you haven't truly accepted the Spirit of Jehovah in the first place. And the reason I say that is because if you've truly accepted the Spirit of Jehovah, you wouldn't have any desire to be a Satanist. So simply by the fact that you can even question Jehovah or Yahweh, or by whatever name you want to call him, shows that you haven't accepted his spirit. Because one of the things about Jehovah is he changes your personality. If you accept him and let him in his presence, you no longer have a desire to be like everyone else, to be normal. You want to be a passive, servile, always praising Jesus sort of person. So the fact that you can question whether you really believe in Jehovah tells me that you haven't accepted it in the first place. So the next obvious question would be, if you haven't accepted it, why would anybody want to be Christian in the first place? And the reason is because in a lot of places in this country and other places, people come from families where they're constantly being pressured to be saved, to accept Jesus, especially in the southern United States where I'm from. It's, Mama Apple Pie and Jesus. I mean, that's not just a cliche. It really is kind of like that around here. So you're constantly being told if you don't accept Jesus, you're going to burn in hell. So people tend to, accept Christianity out of pressure. They may not necessarily really believe it. They might not necessarily believe in Christianity, but they're so afraid because they've been told you're going to burn in hell, you're going to burn in hell, you're going to burn in hell, that they just break down from the pressure. Because nobody wants to think of going to an eternal lake of fire forever. What usually happens is once they get past this initial fear, though, they go back to being the way they were. They go back to thinking about religion the way they did before they were scared. And so that's why they get interested in Satanism again. So what I would say is, as long as you have an interest in Satanism, as long as you have a desire to still question Christianity and to not really believe it fully, then that means you never really accepted the spirit of the Christian God in the first place, so you're fine. Once that parasite gets a hold of you, and that's the way I view Jehovah, I view him as a parasite. I view him as a disease. I don't view him as anything special. I don't view him as the supreme God. I view him as a parasite. And I view the people that believe in him and worship him as being possessed, being ill, being sick. And they're possessed by a spirit of evil that is vindictive, that is hateful, that tries to convince people that he is the supreme deity. I don't see it as anything special to be a Christian. I see it as somebody who, unfortunately, has succumbed to an illness that they can no longer be saved from. The Christians are very much like the deity they worship. They have two faces. They present this image of love, peace, and acceptance. But when you really look at what they preach and what they do, and that mask comes off and you realize how vindictive and how evil they are, you realize that just like their God, it's a mask. That false kindness, that false love, that we accept you, brother, and the love of Christ and all that stuff. It's a mask that they wear. It's an image that they put on. But behind all of that fake love and acceptance is this evil desire to control every aspect of your life. And if you don't believe me, just watch the video I put up on my YouTube page about Christians showing their true colors. Look at what they say, look at what they do, look at how they act. And that's exactly how their God is. He has one face for people when he wants to convince them and seduce them into believing in him. And then once he has them, he shows people what he really is. A vindictive parasite, an evil entity, worth nothing and worth no praise and worship. He is something that should be destroyed. He is something that should be avoided. He is something that should be opposed at every opportunity. To me, the idea of Christians going around giving people this message of salvation is about the equivalent of giving somebody an AIDS-infected needle or giving somebody a gun and telling them to pull the trigger once they put it to their head. It's nothing special. It's not a gift. It's a curse. It's enslavement. And that's the way I see it. And so the way we should look at Christians who go around spreading the gospel of Christ is they're committing a crime. They're committing a crime against humanity. They're committing a crime against that individual. They're teaching them to enslave themselves to a religion that wants to take away their personal freedom and their personal free will. And they're enslaving themselves to a God who doesn't give a damn about them.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Illumination Report podcast. For the latest news headlines, show information, and more, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com.